So for a really long time, the Orlando Magic have been one of the worst franchises in the NBA. This is due to the fact that they were literally stuck in the worst place any team could be in, meaning they weren't a bad enough team where they could tank and get a top 5 pick, and they also were not a good enough team to be one of the better teams in their conference. They were basically just stuck in the middle, barely making the playoffs. And even when they did make the lottery, they were basically missing out on a lot of picks, choosing the wrong player. But in this year's NBA draft, I actually think they did pretty well in my opinion, as they did select Jalen Suggs with the 5th pick, and they also traded their best player Nikola Vucevic at the trade deadline last year for some more young pieces. And that has led me to make this video where I'll be discussing how I would fix the Orlando Magic to help their future, because they kind of are in some desperate need for fixing. Before we get into the video, I asked you to drop a like on this video. I also asked you to drop a subscription on this channel if you want to help me reach my goal of 1,500 subscribers. Also, if you want daily NBA content, also drop a comment on this video, as I do respond to every single one of my comments, and play that intro. The first step I would take towards fixing the Orlando Magic is to absolutely tank this roster. I genuinely think Orlando will and is going to be one of the worst teams in the NBA next season, and it just makes complete sense to do that, because although they have a bunch of solid young players in Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, Wendell Carter Jr., Franz Wagner, Jonathan Isaac, and actually a few others, I don't think any of those guys will be a superstar level player, and I think there's a chance Jalen Suggs could reach that potential, but it's not likely he reaches that level. He's not a guy like Trae Young, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, etc., whereas you would actually expect him to turn into a superstar. I think it can be an all-star level player, and that's probably what I would predict him to be. But if you want to win a championship in today's NBA, you have to have a guy who's a top 10 player in the league and a superstar on your team. And right now, it's not looking like Orlando has that, because if you think about it, they should just tank this whole entire year, be one of the worst teams in the league, get a top 3 pick in the draft, and then they could potentially select a superstar, and then their future will look way more bright, rather than if they just get the 8th seed or get the 10th pick in the draft. There's also no benefit of this team winning games, because they're just not a good team. Even if they try to win games, which there's a chance they aren't, they're obviously not gonna not try, they're still gonna be one of the worst teams in the NBA. So I just think they should tank. At the end of the season, they should just maybe sit their best players or anything if it ever comes to that. But they definitely need a top 3 pick, in my opinion, top 5 pick this upcoming draft. The second step I would take to fix the Orlando Magic is to give Mo Bamba a real chance, because Mo Bamba was a guy who a few years ago was selected with the top 10 pick. A lot of people thought he could be a Rudy Gobert type of player, and he simply has not been like that. The thing is, he hasn't had a proper opportunity to show how good he is, because back when he was drafted, Orlando was still trying to win games, and they had an all-star big man in Nikola Vucevic who was playing all of the minutes. But now that Orlando is not trying to win anymore, and now that they're not a good team anymore, I think they should prioritize trying to play the younger players, and Mo Bamba definitely is one of those younger players. And also, they don't even have Nikola Vucevic, and now they have Wendell Carter Jr., who is better than Mo Bamba, and he's also young. But I still think Mo Bamba should have some playing time to show how good he can actually be, because when he's been given playing time, he's actually been a really solid player. Because over the course of his career, in the 22 games where he played over 20 minutes per game, only 20 minutes, he averaged 11 points, 7 rebounds, shooting 50% from the field and 41% from 3, and he averaged over a block. So clearly, if he's given playing time, he could be a solid player in the NBA. I think they should let him and Wendell Carter Jr. play out for minutes, battle it out for the starting spot, because I generally think Mo Bamba can be just as good as Wendell Carter is, but Wendell still has really good potential. He's like an Al Horford type of player. That's what I think his ceiling is. But I also think Mo Bamba's ceiling is Rudy Gobert level, and a Rudy Gobert that can actually handle the ball and shoot the ball. He just has to be given the opportunity and proper guidance. The third step I would take to help the Orlando Magic is to start Rj Hampton, who was a player they acquired in the Aaron Gordon trade. Hampton is a guy who in high school was one of the top prospects, but he fell really down in the draft due to the fact that he was not amazing overseas, and just last year he was in his rookie season in Denver. But as soon as he got traded to Orlando, his play drastically improved, as in the 26 games he played for the Magic, he put up 11 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists, shooting 43% from the field, and he did this in only 25 minutes per game. I'm not saying he went crazy or anything, but he definitely showed signs he could be a really good player in the NBA. He's also a pretty good defender, and right now I don't think they have a better shooting guard than him. Terrence Ross is probably a better shooting guard right now, but obviously it doesn't really make sense to play a nearly, or maybe even his 30 at this point, Terrence Ross, because he's not doing anything for you. I think they should actually trade him, but unless they want to start a backcourt of Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony, which wouldn't be too crazy since Suggs is a bigger guard, I think they should start Rj Hampton, because he's a guy who might have star potential, because he showed that in high school, and at the end of the Magic season he showed he can be an NBA player. And I feel like if he's gonna start, he's gonna be playing at his best, and I think he might be the most underrated player on this team, because I'm pretty sure everyone forgot about him. And I do think there's a chance he could be a star, but I just assume he'd be a really good role player. But also I will say this, if they want to start Cole Anthony, that's not a horrible move, but I do believe Rj Hampton has more potential than Cole Anthony, and I think he should get the starting spot, and I think it'll help his development in the future. The fourth and final step I would take to help the Orlando Magic in the future is to trade Terrence Ross, who is also a really underrated player. Everyone on this team is underrated. He's actually one of the best three-point shooters in the league, as he can hit them at a really contested level, and he moves great off the ball. And over the past few years, he's been one of the better bench players in the whole NBA, because he's a guy who can catch fire at any time and play at an all-star level when he's on fire. And I think a lot of teams would be willing to give up some things for him, because a lot of teams just need a guy who can get on fire and put the ball in the basket. And I think he could be a great help to a lot of title contending teams. I think some teams would be willing to give up a first round pick or a young player for him, because he's actually that good. And obviously that would really help the Magic out, especially in their future, since they would get more assets for the future, which is where they're building towards. They don't really need Terrence Ross on the team because they're not trying to win anything, and that would just be wasting an asset on their team. He doesn't really need playing time. He's a good enough player to get playing time, but it doesn't, I would rather play Rj Hampton more minutes than him, because he's the future. To conclude the video, the Orlando Magic actually have one of the more bright futures in the NBA. I feel like no one's really talking about it. They have a bunch of young players who I think will be really good players in the NBA. They got guys like Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter Jr., Franz Wagner, Rj Hampton, along with a few others. The only problem I see with this team is that they don't have a superstar type of player, or a player who I think for sure will be a superstar, or just I would even I don't even think there's a 20% chance Jalen Suggs become a superstar. But that's not too big of a problem, because more than half of the league doesn't have a superstar player or a player who can be a superstar player. But I do think if they ever want to be real title contenders, they're going to need to have that guy. And in a few years, I could see them making the playoffs or the play-in tournament, kind of out to the Memphis Grizzlies did 2 years ago. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you think the Orlando Magic have a bright future. Drop a like on this video to help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content, and if you want to reach my goal of 1,000 platinum subscribers. Also drop a comment on this video, as I do respond to all of my comments, and I'm out.